we have socio-cultural factors.
Yeah.
So cultural values and social norms. In cultures where success, wealth, and power are highly valued, individuals may be more driven to pursue these goals. The media and societal norms may glorify these pursuits, leading some to view them as ultimate symbols of success. And they can be in many cases, right? Neither good nor bad kind of thing. Social mobility and status. In some societies, the accumulation of wealth and power is closely linked to social status and mobility. People may pursue these as a way to elevate their social standing or to secure a more comfortable future for themselves and their families. I think they're novel things. But that kind of, is the middle of the pack. I'm really interested in these extremes, So we've got number 3, which is biological factors. So temperament and personality. Certain personality traits such as ambition, aggressiveness, or risk-taking may predispose someone to seek power and wealth. These traits may be influenced by genetics, upbringing, or a combination of both. So we know that it's always a combination of the both. It's environmental, largely. So philosophical and existential factors. The search for meaning and purpose. So for some, the pursuit of power and wealth might be tied to a deeper search for meaning or purpose in life. They may see these pursuits as a way to leave a legacy, make a lasting impact, or to fulfill a perceived destiny. And then we've got the last one, which is economic factors. So economic inequality. In contexts where there is significant economic inequality, the pursuit of wealth and power might be seen as a necessary means for security and stability, not just for oneself, but for one's family. And so I think they're all that's all useful and relatively true. Well, like I said, I'm interested in these like extreme edge cases, Yeah.
And
so go.
The cultural one is interesting. For some reason, what came to mind was like a monarchy. People who are born into royalty have all the power, right? And that's sort of like
yes.
Would you say that that's a cultural thing? Is that a cultural?
What do you mean?
Yeah. Or is cultural more like how they have tribes in Africa? And depending on where you are within that tribe, you get a certain level of respect. And I'm not really sure how you get the different positions within those tribes. But it's a very, what's it called? When a culture really respects different levels of power, there's a word for that. Hierarchy, yeah. Hierarchy.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, so hierarchies exist across, many systems. Like useful, like their hierarchies are, like you can't just get rid of it, so to speak. But yes.
But a cultural hierarchy though.
Well, culture is like your greater context, right? So like, in Western society, it's like, becoming a doctor, or like, having a degree or being a doctor or an accountant or whatever, like that's cultural. Like at some level, like, that's successful for people. And so that might be enough. And so we have like all of this across all the different scales and all the different hierarchies. But yeah, the one so I think that's part of a system, right? That these are part of a system. Like, so, you have cells in your body. Cells get together to create organs. They all serve a purpose. You could think of them as like your accountants, your plumbers, your this and your that, right? So they all come together to create a greater system. I'm interested in like those edge cases or like the extremes where it's like, the one cell wants to control every other cell in the body, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the group of cells becomes the brain, which, is the nervous system to control the totality of the other cells, kind of thing, that kind of stuff. But you mentioned about the monarchy and somebody being born into power. Yeah, that's interesting as well, because like, that person may or may not have a drive for the power, but because of, family they're born into or the environment they're born into, it might get thrust upon them. And, you think about your Hunter Biden, right? Like, given his dad and the way he grew up, how much of that led to him having the, possible issues that he has.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Being born into power is really interesting because being born into it, you don't really have, I don't think it would be difficult to have the sense of that you deserve it. It was just given to you.
Well, yeah, but you also might have entitlement where you just feel like, oh, I just deserve this because I am. Like I do. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
I think you can go both ways. Guy, can we just have one quick bathroom interval?
Yeah, for sure, bro.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think I've got it. That I just had a possible epiphany while I was weighing.
Why you older your dick, guy?
Yeah, guy. That's the answer. No. So I think that, so power, the allure of power exists because power is incredibly useful, right? And you can use it for, what people might define as good or bad things, right? But you could also think of it in terms of power is very useful, and you can use it to solve problems in your life that are immediate, superficial, and reward system driven, like dopaminergic, okay? Or you could use it for grander things, on larger scales, for like all of humanity, or elevating certain groups of people out of horrible conditions, or solving problems that exist that you can see don't need to exist, by solving those problems, right? Or coming up with solutions. And I think that when you do it for the first part of that, like the superficial, the short term, the dopaminergic or the reward system stuff, it typically ends up, quote unquote, not as useful or bad. Whereas when you do it for the other, that greater, the grander thing, where you have like some grander goal or vision in place, that's when I think it's more useful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
But yeah, ultimately, I think the allure of power exists because power is useful.
So going back to being born into power, that's where we left off when right before you went to the bathroom and had your epiphany after holding your dick. Like we were saying, being born into power, you are sort of given this responsibility that you didn't ask for. And then you said that could sort of stimulate, what was the word that you used?
Entitlement?
Yeah, entitlement. Yeah, exactly. So if you have power and you feel entitled to that power, man, that could be dangerous too, right? But
Absolutely.
There's been well, I'm not really sure, but I think there's been many people who were born into power and actually ended up using it in a useful way, right? But I think it'd be a lot easier to sort of get that sense of entitlement and just don't really know what to do with it. But somebody who had to work really, really hard to sort of get into that position. Actually, no, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to use it for good either, though. Like, it all comes down to the individual.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Or if you're a slave to your if you're a slave to your vices, and you're born into power, then it's probably not gonna end well. If your vices are, very superficial, shitty vices. Whereas if like your vice is like, wanting to solve nuclear fusion or colonizing Mars or some other thing, well then it's likely more useful.